Hi friends, are you ready for some more of the adventures of Flat Stanley? Flat Stanley by Jeff Brown, his original adventure. The last time we were together, we learned a little bit about what happened to Stanley. Right, Flat Larry? Flat Larry's really happy to be with us today. He likes hanging out in the books. He's kind of here between C.S. Lewis and the Book of Common Prayer. He's a good Anglican, Flat Larry. Good job. Well, let's catch up. In case you weren't here last time, what happened was Flat Stanley got squashed by a bulletin board while he was sleeping in his bedroom at night. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor said these things happen, and there are some things that medical science just can't explain. So, Flat Stanley, had to get some new clothes, so he was measured for new clothes because he turned out to be only 1/2 an inch thick, and none of his regular clothes were going to fit him anymore. So now we're ready for Chapter 2. Let's see what happens. Chapter 2, Being Flat. When Stanley got used to being flat, he enjoyed it. He could go in and out of rooms even when the door was closed just by lying down and sliding through the crack at the bottom. Mr. and Mrs. Lamb Chop said it was silly, but they were quite proud of him. Arthur, remember Arthur is Stanley's brother? Arthur got jealous and tried to slide under a door, but he just banged his head. Ow! Being flat could also be helpful, Stanley found. He was taking a walk with Mrs. Lamb Chop one afternoon when her favorite ring fell from her finger. The ring rolled across the sidewalk and down between the bars of a grating that covered a deep, dark shaft. A shaft is like a long, straight tunnel in the ground. Mrs. Lamb Chop began to cry. She's very upset. I have an idea, Stanley said. He took the laces out of his shoes and an extra pair out of his pocket and tied them all together to make one long lace. Stanley was a very handy kind of guy to have extra shoelaces in his pocket, wasn't he? Then he tied one end of that long lace to the back of his belt, and then he gave the other end to his mother. What do you think he's going to do? Can you make a guess? He's got a long lace tied to a long belt, and he's asking his mom to hold one end. Remember, her ring fell down in the grating? I think you've got a good idea. Let's see what happens. Lower me down, he said, and I will look for the ring. Look, there he goes. What do you think about that, Flat Larry? Flat Larry says that Flat Stanley is flat, but not as flat as he is. It's not a competition, Flat Larry, but if it were, you'd be winning. Thank you, Stanley, Mrs. Lamb Chop said. She lowered him carefully between the bars and moved him up and down and from side to side so he could search the whole floor of the shaft. Look, there he is. He's looking everywhere. Do you remember what he's looking for? That's right, he's looking for Mrs. Lamb Chop's ring. 2 policemen came by and stared at Mrs. Lamb Chop as she stood holding the long lace that ran down through the grating. She pretended not to notice them. "What's the matter, lady?" the first policeman asked. "Is your yo-yo stuck?" Why did he think it was a yo-yo? Do you think it was because of the long lace? Maybe. "I'm not playing with a yo-yo," Mrs. Lamb Chop said. "My son is at the other end of this lace, if you must know." "Get the net, Harry," said the second policeman. "We've caught a crazy lady." Just then, down in the shaft, Stanley cried out, "Hooray!" Mrs. Lamb Chop pulled him up and saw that he had the ring. How about that, friends? "Good for you, Stanley," she said. Then she turned angrily to the policeman. "Crazy indeed," she said. "For shame." The policeman apologized. "We didn't get it, lady," they said. "We have been hasty, and we see that now. People should think twice before making rude remarks," said Mrs. Lambchop, "and then they just shouldn't make them at all." Do you agree, Flat Larry? Do you agree? I think you're right. The policeman realized that that was a good rule, and they said they would try to remember it. One day, Stanley got a letter from his friend, Thomas Anthony Jeffrey, whose family had moved just recently to California. A school vacation was about to begin, and Stanley was invited to spend it with the Jeffreys. "Oh boy," Stanley said, "I would love to go." But Mr. Lambchop sighed. "A round-trip train or airplane ticket to California is very expensive," he said. "I will have to think of some cheaper way." When Mr. Lambchop came home from the office that evening, he brought with him an enormous brown paper envelope. See how big it is under his arm? That's really a big one. "Now, Stanley," he said, "try this for size." The envelope fit Stanley very well. There was even room left over, Mrs. Lambchop discovered, for an egg salad sandwich made with thin bread and a toothbrush case filled with milk. He fits right in there. Why? Because he's so flat. Oh, I know, he's not as flat as you, Flat Larry, but Stanley is definitely flat. All right, so he's got an egg salad sandwich made with thin bread and a toothbrush case filled with milk. They had to put a lot of stamps, a great many stamps, on the envelope to pay for both the airmail and the insurance. But it was still much less expensive than an airplane or train ticket to California. The next day, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop slid Stanley into the envelope, along with the egg salad sandwich and the toothbrush case full of milk, and mailed him from the mailbox on the corner. The envelope had to be folded to fit through the slot, but Stanley was limber. That means he could fold and bend his arms and legs. And inside the box, he straightened right up again. There they are, putting Stanley into the mailbox. Mrs. Lambchop was nervous because Stanley had never been away from home alone before. She rapped on the box. Rap, rap, rap. "Can you hear me, dear?" she called. "Are you all right?" Stanley's voice came quite clearly. "I'm fine. Can I eat my sandwich now?" "Wait 1 hour. And try not to get overheated, dear," Mrs. Lambchop said. Then she and Mr. Lambchop cried out, "Goodbye, goodbye," and went home. Stanley had a fine time in California. When the visit was over, the Jeffreys returned him in a beautiful white envelope they had made themselves. It had red and blue markings to show that it was airmail, and Thomas Jeffrey had lettered it valuable and fragile. Valuable means worth a lot, and fragile means breakable. I think Stanley was both of those things, don't you? And they also marked it "This End Up" on both sides. Back home, Stanley told his family that he had been handled so carefully that he never felt a single bump. Mr. Lambchop said it proved that jet planes were wonderful, and so was the Postal Service, and that this was a great age in which to live. Stanley thought so too. How about you, Flat Larry? Is it a great age in which to live for you? I think it is. It's great to be alive. It's great to be able to make this video for you, my friends, and it's great to share Flat Stanley with you. I hope you get a chance to color your Flat Larry, and Mom or Dad or even you could take a picture and post it on our Facebook page so we can see what you and your Flat Larry have been up to. Bye. See you next time.